So now they've covered the common issues in support and what are the things that are, most seen in the go live scenario Yellowfin. There will also come a case where, in the operations of Yellowfin, how do I actually investigate issues that come out of using the application? Now, what do I know what I'm looking at? Then you can actually follow this workflow. And again, it's aided by logging. So with Yellowfin up and running, any operational issue with the application, any action that you do in Yellowfin, whether it's connecting to a data source, whether it's creating a report, deleting a user, moving between screens, everything that you do there is logged. So all these events are logged into a variety of files which are located in our Yellowfin app server logs directory. I will go to that right now and show you where it is so you actually can see it for yourselves. So I can go to app server. Oop, one step too far. And you can see the logs folder here. You can open that. And you can see these are, whoa, I should open the wrong folder here. Do that again. Okay, so you can see I've got a whole bunch of logs because I've been having my Yellowfin deployment with me for quite a few years, I think. And you can see it's basically recording every day. Most of it is very small, no errors at all. But again, there's a variety of files over here. So let me just run you through what these files are and what they mean. Now, the files that you have here, the log files, are essentially all of them are configured with a single log4j properties file, which is located in your webin folder. So it's located in this location here in the web apps root webin folder. It's called log4j.properties. If you open that file, you would see that the default logging level is set to info. So this is the default logging level that we found hits that sweet spot between understanding what the actual error is to unnecessarily recording, every single detail in the universe, which again is a bit of an overkill sometimes. But you can change that level. So in cases where you're trying to, debug or diagnose a particular error that, really, you can't explain it, then you can essentially turn the logging level up to debug, okay, and save that file. And after a few minutes, Yellowfin actually detects that change and it starts increasing the logging level. And with that, we actually, record at that level things like the actual SQL query run to a repository database, at which code line in the application code base does this action take place. So at that detail level, we can actually ascertain what the error is, where it's happening, and then send it across to our support teams, and then we can investigate that with the dev team if needed. So if you're wondering, man, what are these files? Then the first being the Yellowfin log. So these are rotating logs that by default span over 10 files, okay? Again, they're about 1 megabyte each. Again, the configuration for this can be changed at the log4j properties file. You can increase this to over 20 files with 4 megabytes each if you wanted to. But by default, it's 1 megabyte per file for 10 files. And what they contain is the generic Yellowfin application activities that happens while the user's interacting with the application or browser. And they're ultimately the first point of contact and used to troubleshoot events occurring in Yellowfin. Okay, so if anything fails, the first thing that people look at is the Yellowfin log because it contains the actual action there. The second log file is the JDBC log file. So this one contains a one-to-one relationship between the Yellowfin repository database in terms of the connection pool. It logs all the events that's happening in the connection pool and can be used to basically troubleshoot events like network timeouts, network-related connection issues, or if anything that isn't quite right. So if there's like some sort of a communication link failure between the repository database and the user interaction, then the JDBC log file will be a great place to go. The third file is the source logs. So the source logs are essentially log files that correspond to each data source that you've created in Yellowfin. So for example, if I have a SQL Server data source in Yellowfin, and an Oracle one, and maybe a Postgres one, then in my logs directory, I would have 3 different source files, okay? And the NNN here will essentially be populated by the source ID. So the source ID differentiates between the log files, and then when I open that, I'll see, okay, so this one's for my SQL Server data source, this one's for my Oracle, and the last one's for my Postgres one. And again, basically detects and collects all the events for each data source's connection pool. and you can essentially use that to ascertain problems that Yellowfin might be having in trying to interact and communicate with the data source. So for example, I might be trying to run a report, gives me an error, and it says, can't retrieve result set. Why is that happening? And then I can check the log files here and go, oh, my SQL server actually fell over, the connection pool basically closed, and Yellowfin couldn't get any data out of it, and that's the reason why. And the logs would tell you that. Email log, a very simple log that simply logs any sort of email outputs sent through Yellowfin. So for any activities that contain this, like report broadcasts, collaboration that's done between users. So if you comment on something that's subscribed by someone else, that someone else will get an email to say, Ivan's left you a message. All sort of emails that happen here, like in terms of sharing reports via email, go, hey, Ivan sent you a sales report here. So all that activity would be collected and recorded in the email log file. And if you have any SMTP server issues, that will definitely get recorded here. And lastly, console output. So all the generic application logging that you get in the Yellowfin log file is technically also copied to the system console. How this is handled is again different for each operating system. So, Linux and Unix and Mac OS X writes console output to the Catalina out file. Windows bash programs writes the console output to the Tomcat window, which is the container window, and the Windows server writes the output to a standard out log. So, depending on how you deploy Yellowfin, then these are the corresponding files that you need to refer to look at events. But events here are very similar to what's actually contained in your Yellowfin log file as well. Okay? So that's a good base in terms of trying to understand what logging capabilities are there for you and what's actually available to you as an admin to ascertain the health of the application. If you have an issue with a license, if you've not set up an automatic email to send yourself a reminder of whether your license is nearing expiry, or if you run into an issue where you're trying to add too many users, more than the license is allowing you to, then you might run into a few issues where the license management page complains about it. You can investigate this at two different areas, which again is the license management page. If you actually have an account within Yellowfin to access Yellowfin, you can go to the admin console and do that, which is again available here in Yellowfin. So I'll go there, give you an idea of what it is. So let me just log in again. So I have an account in Yellowfin. I want to go and check out my license. So if I'm allowed to do this in my role, in my functions list, then there will be a page called license management over here that I can go to and then read my license details. So what is happening here is it's going to load all that from your database and then give you a screen as to what you're allowed to do and what you're actually doing right now. All right, so obviously, I use this quite a lot locally, and I'm given a pretty big license where I have like 999 for a lot of things, but I'm only ever using 7 data sources currently, and I have about 13 accounts. Okay. So that's one way. If you do not have access to Yellowfin, then you can technically query the actual application server simply by calling the info.jsp file. So you can do that, and we print the exact same information here into an info.jsp page, which is generated right there in a text table form. So you can actually get the same information there as well. And if there's any error, then you can simply compare it against the values and then know immediately what's happening. Otherwise, the page I let you saw before is a nicer, GUI, and if there's any actual errors with the license, you would actually see a little exclamation mark against that value as well. So Yellowfin tries to suggest to you what it thinks are, the erroneous situations. So now that we've gotten all that stuff out of the way, eventually, when someone's complaining of performance issues or slowdowns or any sort of issue, what is the workflow for you to investigate? You know where to look for in terms of the log files. Look at the license management page. But how do you combine all that together into a workflow? And that's basically it here. So the first point is to describe what the issue is. Is it logging in for the first time that's slow? Is it running a particular piece of content? Is it caching filters or creating content? Or is it just simply slow performance at a particular time on a day? All right, so maybe it could be an action that's external to the usual things that people do. And then once you get the answers to this, then the second question would be, is this a new issue? And if it is a new issue, what changes were made before the issue started? Did someone change a view? Did someone do a database upgrade or do something in the back end? Did they upgrade Yellowfin? Did they migrate something? So that allows you to sort of start to pinpoint what the actual issue is and when that happened. And then with the answers you get from that, hopefully you'll be able to come to step 3 and then start exploring what the issue is. We're hoping to get a good idea of, for example, a person might be saying, this only happens when I run this report at a particular time of the day. Other days are okay. And then you go, okay, so what's happening in the background when you run a report? I think we have about an extra 50 users on at that point in time, or someone's trying to create something here, or someone's upgrading a server at this particular point in time. So we're starting to get a good idea what the issues are. Then once we get that, then the other information that we need to get in terms of the items are around the Yellowfin environment, just for to be safe. Like what version and build is in use. That allows the support guys to track this internally in their task management system to see if there are any known issues reported by other clients that fit your scenario. Okay, and to also answer what hardware is Yellowfin running on, how much memory is allocated to Yellowfin. So they're trying to ascertain, is this an out-of-memory issue? Do users access the system directly or via proxy? So people who try to say and describe that logging to Yellowfin is taking a very long time. So people might say, is this via proxy? And the answer is yes. Then that could describe or an issue with the actual proxy redirection. So it could be an issue there. And then with that issue at hand, they can now start exploring the log files and the relevant log files to find what's actually happening. So at that point, then we can start also to ascertain what the issue is further on by requesting a copy of the info threads GSP output. So this is available at the Yellowfin host. Again, how you saw me type the word info.gsp, just add the info_threads. And what this page returns as an output is it returns a snapshot of all available running and waiting threads in the Yellowfin application. So if I go and do this now, as such on my window here on the browser, it's actually going to return me all the threads that are doing work or waiting or just staying idle within my Yellowfin installation. So it's telling me the thread summary here, my connection pool status, whether it's healthy or not, whether I'm being inundated in the server, and my actual version and build number as well. So your support teams will usually ask for information like this. And if people go, hang on, it's only going slow when I do this certain thing, then what we describe for the user is, how about you grab an info threads snapshot before you do the action, save this, and while you're doing the action and while it's being slow, come back into a separate browser tab and keep running these info threads and snapshotting it. And once it's finished, once it's stopped being slow, grab the last snapshot in the application threads page. And then that allows the support team to build a timeline of what's actually happening in terms of the threads while you're experiencing that slowdown. Okay, so that's a really great way to investigate that. Now, if people are complaining not about the application but slow content, but report and dashboards, then the question that the support team would actually ask is, how does this compare to running the SQL directly in a database? So in Yellowfin, you can copy a SQL for any content you're running via the SQL window. You can paste that into a external third-party tool. Like if you're running a SQL server, you can run Management Studio, connect to the database, and then run a SQL there, and then compare what the runtimes are. And then basically, you're trying to find out if there's a big difference in the runtimes between those two scenarios, which is running in Yellowfin and running on the actual database itself. If the times are the same, the runtimes are the same, then that basically suggests that SQL query is inefficient. So there might be more work needed to be done there to do analytics, where you might need to perhaps improve your schematics or do very quick solutions like indexing a column if you haven't done that, indexing columns on your joins and on the columns you filter on, or maybe even in certain cases aggregating the data a bit more because it simply isn't performant. Now, if the runtimes are significantly different and your direct SQL method is a lot faster, then that would suggest that there is a problem with the way we're handling that data at the Yellowfin side. And again, that would need to be investigated as to what has changed within Yellowfin, and that actually narrows down very quickly what's happening in this case. Last but not least, still a pertinent point is browser performance. Then at this case, the support team will ask, does changing the browser affect the performance issue? Does it run super fast in Chrome and Firefox but not in IE? And the reason being is because different browsers handle pages differently in different ways, which could ultimately affect performance. So the support team in that case is just trying to rule out if the browser is actually the error component here. And again, just a little tip. Ensure that the browser uses at the latest version naturally before you do any of these tests. For example, if you're trying to use Yellowfin in IE6, it won't actually allow you to do that and tell you that you need to upgrade IE. But yeah, the latest version of browser is usually the latest and greatest.